Commander, veterans, members of the Post 853, and all of you who are assembled here today, my thanks for inviting me to talk today. I want to share with you the story of a 26-year-old who was there in the first wave of Army engineers on D-Day at Omaha Beach in Normandy on June the 6th, 1944. This 26-year-old was born Hrihori, or Gregory, Plekon, in Nanticoke, Pennsylvania, in the coal region, on May 17, 1918. The teacher couldn't pronounce Hrihori and decided to call him Harry. He didn't like Harry, so they ended up with Henry. He was one of 4 boys. His father was a coal miner who died young from all of the effects of the mines. On Easter Sunday in 1940, in Yonkers, New York, where I was born, my maternal grandmother heard a young priest chanting the services, Easter services, in church. She went to him afterwards and said, "You sound like a boy that I grew up with and sang in the church choir with in Borrego, in what is now Western Ukraine. His name was Ivan Plekon." Father Miron said, "That's my father." And she said, "Well, you have to come over to the house." Well, he did, and he brought his younger brother, Hrihori, or Henry by now. And at first sight, that Henry and my grandmother's daughter, Helen, were made for each other in love. But they would have to wait, because in 1941, Henry enlisted. The real story today is about the courageous service done in that enlistment. Like thousands of other soldiers, he was part of a long training program in England for D-Day. The ultimate goal was a massive invasion of occupied France, the largest attack in history. This brings us to June the 6th, 1944. The Army engineers were the first line of that assault. They were there to clear barbed wire and other structures on the beach that would block the infantry, tanks, jeeps, and trucks. The Army engineers still do this today. They demoed and cleared most of Pacific Palisades, my wife's hometown, after the fires. Now, I have to tell you that all the years I spent with my father, he died in 1991, he very rarely spoke of what he experienced, not only on that day, but then thereafter. But on the 40th anniversary of D-Day in 1984, a reporter came to their house, my mom and dad, and forced him to talk about it. Terry Hall was a reporter for the Herald-Statesman in Yonkers. On this bleak gray morning, June the 6th, 1944, Second Lieutenant Henry Plekon, 26, a supply and mess officer for the 121st Combat Engineers of the 29th Infantry Division, found himself in a landing craft making its first assault on Omaha Beach. Buffeted by choppy waves and rocked by shells from massive German guns, the craft was forced back only to try to land once more. Plekon's outfit was to clear the beach of barbed wire and other obstacles to help make way for the greatest amphibious assault in history, the Allied forces' invasion of Normandy. Most of his group never made it to shore. And for Plekon, who would survive the explosion of his landing craft, only to spend the next 12 hours buried alive in the sand of Omaha Beach, it truly would be the longest day. Now 66, Plekon, who is a retired meat cutter from Yonkers, remembers that day, up to the point where he says he remembers nothing at all. This is what my dad said. "When we went in the second time to land the troops, we got hit with an 88 shell and the ship exploded. Everybody on the bottom of the ship was gone. The ones on top, I took care of them. I was throwing ropes over the ship to get them to slide down the ropes and get in the water, he recalled. The ship blew up after that. I got them in the water, and then I got myself into the water. My whole face was burned, and my hands also. Too injured to do more than float, Plekon fortunately entered the water on his back, drifted in and out with the tide. When he was finally swept up on Omaha Beach, the lapping waves covered him with sand, burying everything but his head and one hand. My father said, the corpsman passed me up several times, I was told, thinking I was dead. But then I moved my hand. I was there all morning, all day, till 4 or 5 in the afternoon. And when he saw me move, he dug me out of the sand. So he received the Silver Star for that, as well as the Purple Heart. And I'm going to read you the citation. Second Lieutenant Henry Plekon, 121st Engineers, C Battalion, U.S. Army, for gallantry in action against the enemy on the morning of 6 June 1944 in Normandy, France. When Second Lieutenant Plekon's craft attempted to beach, it was met by extremely heavy artillery and machine gun fire, which set the vessel afire, cut off the personnel in the rear of the ship. Though badly burned on the face and hands, Second Lieutenant Plekon moved to the rear of the boat and took command of the personnel who had become completely disorganized. He marshaled them off the stern of the boat. Second Lieutenant Plekon's cool leadership and good judgment allowed many men to reach shore safely, and reflects the great credit upon himself and the military service. He entered military service from New York. After all of this, after recuperating from his burns, he rejoined that engineers brigade to rebuild bridges in Germany, to liberate towns, and I believe a concentration camp. He returned to his beloved Helen and married her in May 1946, and I came along in 1948 with 2 brothers to follow. Only after his death did we realize how much my father bore within him the scars of what had happened to him. I remember once at a wedding when one of my crazy relatives was trying to pump him for information, him say quite simply, anyone who saw what I saw would never want to repeat it. My father bore within the scars of what happened to him, the suffering and death he had seen. He was in family life as he was in the service, quiet, humble, hardworking, caring. He and my mother said our evening prayers with us as we were growing up. They were with us in church every Sunday, which is probably why I've been a priest for over 45 years. Today we give thanks not just for his service, but that of so many other courageous women and men. In Ukraine now, and I proudly wear a Ukrainian cross with my vestments always, in Ukraine now, during the struggle against the Russian invasion and oppression, there is a cry that goes up every day many, many times. It is also a prayer, and it is most appropriate for us on Veterans Day. In Ukrainian, it's Slava Hero'iim, glory to the heroes, those who suffered and died to keep us free. May those heroes inspire us to continue the struggle for our democracy and freedom in this land. Amen.